Isn't being transcribed? Yeah, that's good. No, it is. Okay. Alrighty. So what I have done this morning, I've asked Dan to play John for me. So thank you, Dan. I really appreciate that, to put you on the spot, because I really wanted an opportunity for you to see how a gambling session is conducted. It's a little bit different from a generalist counselling session. And one of the advantages of working as a gambling counsellor is what? So you're working in the service. What's one of the advantages when someone comes through the door that you don't have when you're doing generalist counselling?
I guess you already know the problem.
Yeah, it's such a big advantage, isn't it? So either one, the person has a problem with gambling, or they actually have a family member or a loved one or a very, very close friend who is has an issue with gambling and they want more information. So one of the good things about being a problem gambling counsellor, you get to do both, and they're free. They're free sessions. So that's one of the advantages, as opposed to when you're flying blind in a generalist counsel, you don't know what you're going to be hit with. So yeah, I think that is an advantage. Okay, so what? Yeah, you do, Kate. You know, you get a sense what the main problem is. It's going to be, and that's why it's really important too that when you work as a gambling counsellor, that you know all about the industry. You know that you are aware of what's happening. I mean, I saw Star and Chris Minzer had a chat and signed some document. I haven't looked at it yet because I had a busy week and I was working. They brought in more changes, and they mentioned poker machines. I'm not sure what's happening. I'll look into it, but I can't imagine it's good. So anyway, but you do need to have that information, because one of the things that we do, and you'll see in that chat pod when I talk about the typical counselling sessions, one of the things we do, we talk to them about how the stakeholders in the gambling industry impacts on them. And if you're working with family members and friends, that's a big part of it, because you're not shifting blame, but we're saying it can be environmental, it can be condition. You've only got to look at the ads on the TV. So it's part of the role. So you need to have that information. Oh, thanks, Mark. So what is it? It's a Okay. Oh, and 8 gambling tables. And there was something else they introduced. They're either reducing taxes. I heard something about tax. Not sure. If anyone wants to Google it and find out and put it in the chat pod, I'd be interested. I just had a break from it. Yeah, so I worked as with my client a whole weekend, and working in the NDIS space, I think it's harder than doing counselling. Much harder, because you guys have done legal and ethical. It's a whole different ballgame when you talk about professional boundaries, because you're stepping into their world and you're exposed to the whole family dynamics. And it's so challenging maintaining those ethics and basing decisions when you're juggling duty of care and dignity of risk. It's tough. It's a tough gig, but it's I do love it, but counselling's easier. Mark, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, just with it going cashless in 2024, I wonder how the statistics for how much revenue of the illegal gambling and like drug money and all that will come through, how much that actually changes and
Yeah.
over the years. And then if you see like the next 3 years of revenue off Star, you go, okay, how much of the previous years were actually so illegal?
It's going to be interesting, isn't it? Because they actually came up with a figure of 21% of money going through poker machines was from illegal means. Yeah, 21%. It's a lot, isn't it? And if you were to walk into Star right now, you can see them. It's so obvious. I've seen people walk in with a golf bag at a pub with cash, just cash, feeding it through. They just turned a blind eye. Oh, thanks, Judy. 8 million. Yeah, a lot of money, isn't it? 8 million. Oh, righty. So, what am I doing? So today we're going to be talking about a typical gambling session. And then I want to demonstrate what motivational interviewing is. I had a look over the weekend too. There's a lot of stuff on Moodle and YouTube about how motivational interviewing works. And I think they're professionals and they do it better than me. So hopefully we'll get a chance to have a look at some of those in either today or next week. But I think there's some really nice. I think there's psychologists that demonstrate how motivational interviewing works, and it's a lovely way to work with people. And motivational interviewing came about in the addiction space. That's why it was developed. And Stephen Rolnick and William Miller developed it. It's not very long. It's not very old. I don't know, maybe 15 years. So it's a new thing. It's new, and it works, and it's quite easy. And why I like, one of the reasons I do like it, it works with men and women. So I find a lot of therapies work better with certain gender types. But motivational interview works across the board and all ages as well, which is really nice. It works with young children or young teenagers right up until 80s and 90s. So it's good. Okay, yeah, so there's a lot of reading to do there. Okay, thank you. All right, so Dan, are you there? Poor Dan, I put him on the spot this morning. And I said Dan, I remembered, I said Dan.
You did. So I had no option but to say okay.
I know.
I was in my jammies. I was thinking I won't turn the camera on.
Oh, goodness, sorry.
I get this message 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, sorry,
So,
matey.
no, you're right.
Okay. Now, have you got any questions about John as the client?
Can I make up stuff about him? I'm assuming it's
Yeah,
pretty.
just be creative. Have a bit of fun.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, have fun with it.
Apologies. I'll do my best.
Yeah, I guess we have to, but there's an underlying or overlaying theme of deep sadness and
Yeah.
potentially depression.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you can make up whatever career you want to have and have some
All
fun.
right.
All right.
I'll do my best.
All right. So, guys, this session will probably go for the 50 minutes, and you can see it in the chat pod. I'm going to be looking at doing the initial introduction. The person-centered strength, PCSB's person-centered strength-based psychodynamic work. So I'll be using Carl Rogers as the beginning. So it's very unstructured. The most important thing is developing that rapport, creating a safe space, being genuine, non-judgmental, empathic. Okay, and lots of compassion. And then we go into the structured phase, and this is what I've been telling you for ages. With counselling, it's in the back of our mind, we know there's a process. It's quite structured, but the client isn't aware of that process and that structure. So we'll look at an assessment. Now, again, this is interesting. When you work as a problem gambling counsellor, I sometimes don't do the screening tools. I weigh up, and because I'm experienced, I weigh up whether this will get in the way of change, or will this get in the way? Would this stop, say it's John, from opening up to me? Would this feel too, I don't know, what's the word? Tick the boxes. Because the most important thing is that rapport, okay, and having him feel safe. Sometimes when you bring out these screening tools, it might stop that. So I sometimes don't use them. Hopefully today I can weave them in. But if I don't, they're there, and we'll talk about it later. So, I don't know what John's going to open up with. I know I've got a background, which is an advantage and a disadvantage, but I'll see whether it fits in. But you will see me more than likely use the decisional balance sheet at stage 3 when I'm exploring change, and that is part of the motivational interviewing. That is a motivational interviewing tool. It also crosses across to dialectical behaviour therapy, DBT, which is a fantastic therapy. It works. It's mainly used for people that have borderline personality disorder. It is brilliant. And if you don't know much about DBT, it's actually a very structured program that if you sign on, you must attend for 12 months, and you do homework every day. And often you may speak to a psychologist, if not once a week, sometimes each day, and you also go to group work. Okay, so it's a really fabulous therapy. So in stage 4, we'll be looking at experimenting with change. Now, what does that feel like? I'm wondering how that's going to go, because you've talked about, when we do that decisional balance sheet, you'll see how we look at the benefits of change, but we'll also look how difficult it's going to be by not gambling. Because remember, it fills the need, it fills a gap. So we need to sit with that and explore it, and chat to John about, the challenges, and perhaps what are the barriers? What's going to be difficult about that? What can we put in place? What support? And this is where we might look at other support services, maybe GA, maybe tapping into his doctor, maybe if he hasn't told his daughter yet, maybe there's a potential there that he might have a conversation with her. Maybe there's another friend who he knows who had a gambling problem and is no longer gambling. They are often the best. Not a family member. Someone else has had that experience. And with the GP, he may feel that he needs more than just me. He wants more support. So he may want to get a mental health care plan and see a psychologist who specialises in trauma or other things. Okay, and I apologise. I'm still not well. This flu has been hanging around. I've had asthma, and I had to get out of Sydney, honestly. It was, it really is an environmental challenge living down there. But I'm back home, which is great. So I can at least breathe. But my voice is still very deep and husky. Okay. The other part that we do in stage when we are experimenting with the change, where we'll be looking at the behavioural strategies that we can incorporate. Now, that's up to John. And what we do here, I'll ask him things like, have you tried to stop gambling before or reduce your gambling? And he may say something like, I have. And I go, okay, so how did that work? Or what did you do? How long did you stop for? And one of the crucial things in any addiction counselling is it's rare that you get a client walking in that door that hasn't tried before and has tried, been successful, but then lapsed or relapsed. So keep that in the back of your mind. That is so important, because the conversation may go, I don't know. It may be John has stopped, a number of times, 7, 8 times. And I'll go, so tell me about the first time. And he'll chat. And I said, how long did that last for? He may say 8 months. I don't know. He may say 1 week. It doesn't matter, because what we're going to focus on is, but you did stop. That's amazing. So what was different? What was working? And then look at, when did it not work? Was there a trigger? Was there an incident? Did you have a fight with someone? Was there an anniversary? And I said, well, what about other times? How long had you stopped for other times? And over that time, and I write this down, I don't often take notes, but I do write this stuff down. We may come up with, hey, in that time, you actually stopped successfully for 6 months. That's amazing. And I don't care if he says 6 weeks or 6 days. I'll say, that's amazing. Okay, because anyone that has ever experienced anything with addiction, I don't want to swear, it's so hard to stop it. So any success, if it's a day, an hour, 6 weeks, 6 months, you applaud it. And what we call that is amplifying it. You amplify those successes. It's like coaching. Go you. That was a great effort. And I love that coach from the Matildas, because he talks about effort. And this is also true when you're talking about raising children, or anybody, when you're working with people, we don't praise their achievement. You praise the effort. It works. You get a better result when you praise the effort. Okay. So we'll be looking at experimenting with change. The next, and those behavioural strategies, that's going to be up to John what he wants to do. We also look at what triggers. What has he noticed? What has he noticed? Not me. What have maybe other people? What have they noticed? Not sure. Okay. Part 6 is when we look at the cognitive strategies. One of the most important things at this stage is acceptance. And it's important for John to accept that, he's got an issue with gambling, and 2, that money's gone. And there's not there's never been a moment when I've been working with someone when I see that and their heart sinks and it's breaking and they realize that they do have a problem and I'll never get that money back. That money's gone. So, and it's heart-wrenching. It's heart-wrenching. And that's where the acceptance comes in. And it's about the grieving process. But at the same time, it's also about maintaining and always projecting and amplifying hope. The other thing we explore, perhaps, I don't like the word fail, but that's what sits in the book. Why didn't those, what stopped you from sustaining that change? In that cycle of change, we talk about maintenance. What happened that you had a lapse or a relapse? We'll look at that. And the other thing is we do a lot of psychoeducation, but always with the person-centered, strength-based and motivational interviewing. And with that psychoeducation, one of the things that I always say to people, success is still possible even though we've had lots of attempts and they haven't worked, they haven't been sustainable. We can get there. And this is where I might do stories about, I've been doing this a long time and I've worked with a lot of gamblers and they are no longer gambling. They are living full lives. They are working. They have successful relationships. They are back at work. They are connecting with their family again. They're okay. And they do not gamble. So that's that hope. We have to let them know it's possible. And what's really important, and I always talk to them about the potential of lapsing and explain what a lapse looks like and explain a relapse. And some people don't. I do. I like to do it because I want to make it normal. I don't want them to think if they do fall off, the wagon or, hit a speed hump, that they're horrible people, that they're bad people, that they're hopeless, that there's no hope. I want them to know that this is part of the process of understanding at a deeper level what gambling is about, what need is it feeling, what role does it play, what else do we need to do? So, and I've mentioned it before, when a client comes in and most will come back in on a Monday, Tuesday, and I can tell they're walking through the corridor. I'm looking at them and I just go, come on, do you want a coffee? Do you want water? Have a seat. And I don't even, I just go, what happened? You can tell because they're so forlorn. You can tell. And they go, oh, Lou. I said, it's all right. Tell me what happened. Let's chat about it. And they too and said, okay. So, and then we look at what fell apart and, and then maybe there's an opportunity too for that person, whether I didn't see, that he didn't see or she didn't see, why they gamble. And I'll just give you an example. There was one chap, and I can still see him, and he used to come on a Monday morning. He used to unfortunately be paid in cash, and a lot of cash, like $5,000 a week cash. And on the weekend, he said he had shared custody of his children, and everything was great. It was amicable, blah blah blah. But on a Sunday, on any given Sunday, when he had to return the children back to his partner, he would just go into a slump and go straight to the club. And he got paid Sunday mornings, that $5,000 cash. It would all go. It would all go. And he hadn't mentioned that before. And so this time he's walked in, I'm looking at him and going, oh my God, he goes, Lou, I'm in trouble. I said, what's happening? He said, I put everything through the poker machine last night, everything. I said, so tell me what happened, what led up to that? And he talked about his kids and how much he loves them and misses them, and he has them every second weekend. It's breaking his heart, and she's got and what happened was she had a new partner. So when he went to drop the kids off, the new partner was there, and poor bloke. I mean, it was shattering for him. I get it. What's not to understand about that? So then I said, okay. So again, acceptance. She appears to have moved on. What can you do? What do we need to do? So in 2 weeks' time, you get paid. What are we going to do? And he said, I'm going to get my boss to put it straight in my bank account. That's it. And yeah, I've just got to do that. I said, okay, let's try it. But we talked then about it was more about his relationship then. It didn't become about the game, it became about his relationship. And then I also spoke to him about perhaps you might need to be talking to someone who specializes in relationships, and he did. He went and saw his GP because he wasn't sleeping either. And he ended up having a good outcome. So and he had trauma issues with his dad, and he reconnected with his dad, and he actually drove all the way to Queensland to see his dad and nutted out, and came back, and there was a lot of tears when he came back. And yeah, it was really wonderful. So sometimes you're not sure of the story, but even the client's not even sure. So that's our job. As a counsellor, that is our job, to listen and to hear what they're not saying, to watch and notice that person when they're in front of you. Watch them, the face, listen to the voice, watch their hands, watch how they look away. What are they doing with their body? Note the silences, the pauses, and think, hey, I just noticed when you were talking about your partner then, you looked down and you grabbed your heart. You actually went like that. That's all I'll say. I don't say anything else. Because that gives them time to reflect, and they will look down and start getting a sense. Wow, yeah, I do. Yeah, it's hard. It's every Sunday when I've got it. Yeah, and they start talking to you. So that's the stuff. That's the beauty, and that's where you have to have courage to watch and observe and think, I'm going to go there. Okay. Oh, okay. You're going to make me cry. Okay. All right. So, and this is what counselling is all about. It really is when you join with that client and you lead from behind and you go with them, and it's amazing. It's such, you can tell I love it. I'm so passionate about it because it works. It works. And you may not, you're only a small part of this journey, but you may be that starting point for that person to grow and to make changes. And then you're giving them the tools and the strategies to think, hey, I can do this. And one of the best things, I think, and in financial counselling we do this too, is when they do lapse, they don't need you. They know what they have to do. They just get back on that horse and they go, right, I need to go back to GA. I need to talk to Gambling Helpline. I need to sort out my money. I need to do this. Do I need to see Luke? No, I got this sorted. That's when you know you've done a good job, when they don't need you. Okay. So let's start this. So that's that in a nutshell. Now, hopefully I get to do all that, but that's the process that I'm very aware of that I'd like to do, but it doesn't always work like that. And that's the beauty, because one of the lovely things about doing gambling counselling, it's free. So they can keep coming back for as long as they feel they need to. So how cool is that? All righty. So there's no pressure. You can do a lot of this in the second session or the third session if they're like it. All righty. So let's do it, Dan.
No pressure, you say?
No pressure. No pressure. Bring out your
feeling
best
it at all.
skills. I'm going to, hey Liz, I'm going to turn the chat off for me so I can focus on Dan, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Lovey. So if you can just keep an eye on that, that'd be great. I've got the wrong mouse. All righty. So for everyone else that's observing, please write down, just maybe even tick if I've done those things. Maybe if you're curious about why would Louise do that, please ask me, because this is where you learn. I never do a perfect session. Some sessions I walk out and go, yeah, nailed it. Other sessions I go, oh dear, I need to do some reflection about what was happening in that space. But yeah, so let's just see what happens. All righty. So Dan's walked into my room and I'm pretend that I'm greeting him, or if we are meeting online, we can do that too. So what would you prefer, Dan? Would you like to be in this virtual world?
Let's
Or-
let's pretend we're face to face.
Okay,
That'll
lovely.
be fine.
Okay, fantastic. Hey, John, I'm Louise. How are you?
Louise, nice to meet you.
Yeah, you too. Hey, thanks for making it here today. Did you get any parking? Because parking around here is a nightmare.
Yeah, no, I got in all right. Thanks, Louise.
Excellent.
No, it was good.
Oh, good. Excellent. Hey, John, I'm just curious. I'm assuming coming to see me, you know, that I'm the gambling counsellor here at Mission Australia. I'm just wondering if I'd just like to know whether you have the gambling issue or is it about a family member or a friend?
Yeah, look, I'm not. I appreciate your time. I'm not super excited to be here. I'm nervous about it. I'm embarrassed. It's about me.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
yeah, it's me.
Thanks, John. And I imagine that took a lot of courage to come in here today.
Yeah, I'm a bit embarrassed, as I said, and it's something I don't want to be here, Louise. I'm
Yeah.
really appreciative of your time. I really am. But I know I've got to be here. I can't believe I'm here.
Okay. Sounds like you're quite surprised this has happened, that you're in this position at the moment.
Yeah, I'm sort of knew it. But it's just the fact that I'm at this point. I think
Okay.
it's a realization point for me.
Okay. Okay. Well, I mean, that sounds like a really good place to start. But before we do, John, I'm just curious, have you ever been to counselling before?
No,
Okay.
never.
Okay. So then what are your expectations then from today's session? What are you thinking happens in this space?
I'm hoping you'll fix me. Essentially, if it'd be
I
that
hear that
easy,
often.
yeah,
You want me to wave
um,
that magic wand, don't you?
that'd be great. Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
it'd really be great.
Okay. I hear that often, John, and I wish I could. I wish I could. And I guess a little about counselling is this is a safe place for you to tell me what's happening.
Yeah.
It's private, very confidential. I don't tell anyone what's going on. The other thing that you notice when you came in and you had to fill out that form at the front desk, you notice that um, there was what we call a client identifier. And with that, I just put your initials, my initials, and the year that you were born. And with that, the information I gathered today, because I want to get a sense of your gambling behaviour and what else is happening in your life, I put that information, I've got to feed that back into a database, and that's then collected by the people who fund my position. But no way will they know who you are.
Okay.
There's no one. And even that information, when I keep case notes. You go into a filing cabinet, no one sees your name. Okay, I'm the only one that has access to that, unless we're subpoenaed if you've committed a criminal offence, and then I have no control over that. And of course, if there's any risk of serious harm to yourself or someone else. Does that sound okay?
Yeah, it does.
Okay, all right. So let's start with, I heard you say that you're quite embarrassed and to be here at this point in your life, and I'm just wondering if you could tell me a little bit more about that.
I don't know. This wasn't the plan, I suppose. To be here, admitting that I've got a problem. This was never the way it was going to be. I've had a successful life, and until recently I was working, and I had a bit of a change, I suppose, the last couple of years, and to get to this point now, I'm struggling to pay bills. Money's never been a major issue. I was successful at my career, but now I'm struggling with just paying my electricity bills, etc. So
Okay.
yeah,
Okay. So I'm hearing quite a lot in that, what you've just said there, John, that you were quite successful and here you are now struggling to pay electricity bills.
yeah. So I was in corporate banking. I used to negotiate a lot of contracts.
Okay.
I loved it. High adrenaline. There was nothing better than sealing a deal, and I spent a lot of time working. It was such a big part of my life was working
Yeah.
and the thrill of it. And
Yeah.
and then everything changed a couple of years ago, and then I got bored, I guess.
Hmm.
It was after I had to retire,
Okay.
and yeah, I got bored, but I still miss the work. I still miss the adrenaline rush of it all, I suppose.
Yeah.
It was hectic. It was high stress, but yeah. Anyway, that's just some of the things that were happening.
Yeah. So
And
it's a huge, huge
now I can't
change.
pay the electricity bill.
Wow. Well, I'd imagine that'd be pretty tough from someone, I mean, that sounds like a really high-powered job, and sounds like you're a hard worker and very good at what you were doing, John.
Yeah, I
And,
was good.
and I heard you say that you had to retire. So there was some resistance there.
Like this wasn't the plan, Louise.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everything wasn't
So
the
can you?
plan at all.
So you've mentioned that a few times. I'm wondering. So the plan was to, I guess, to retire successfully, live the good life, but the wheels fell off at some stage. Do you feel comfortable in telling me what happened?
I about, I suppose it's 4 years ago now. So the plan was for me and my wife Yana. We were going to tour around and travel,
Oh,
and then Yana got cancer. It would be about
oh,
4 years ago now, and it was quick, but it was horrible. And then I wanted to keep working after that, and then I had a heart attack,
oh,
and
John.
everything just changed
Oh,
within
goodness.
a 18-month period. And I don't know. I had to
Oh,
retire.
dear.
I just couldn't take
Yeah.
and so everything just came in all of a sudden. And I miss her, and so it just wasn't what we had planned to do when I was going to retire at 65, and we were going to travel and do things like that. And it was all planned. And I've always had a good plan, a structure. It was,
Yeah.
I've got a beautiful daughter. We
Okay.
got the house. We were going to enjoy these years, and then bang. I'm sorry, I'm rambling on a bit, but
No, please don't apologize.
Anyway, so it just changed dramatically, and Anna was wonderful, my daughter, and she's very similar to you. She's 6 foot redhead.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Not many of you
Oh.
around, actually.
We can be a bit scary and intimidating, apparently. I like her already.
Well, she's very passionate and very proud of me, and I'm very proud of her, and I'd hate for her to think of where I am now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
John, I'm so sorry to hear about your loss. And it sounds like you had a beautiful relationship with your wife.
She was amazing. She did everything in the background.
Yeah.
She looked after it. She was my support.
Oh, dear.
I'd do a hard day. She gave up her career essentially just because to support me. She gave up so much.
Wow, that's one great love that you've had. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And as I said, I'm truly sorry. And yeah, you made all that. You had that amazing job. She was there to support you all the way, making plans to travel, and bang, you know, I can't imagine what that would have been like. And you said it was quite quick, so it would have been difficult to process that grief and the change, the change.
Yeah, yeah,
And then having a heart attack as well. Goodness, John, that's a lot in such a short time. And you said it's only been 18 months. That's not very long.
no, it all happened within that period. Um, 18 months, and yeah, it's just amazing how life changed so much in that time.
In a second, can't it? Just in a
Yeah,
second.
and it doesn't
yeah,
seem fair.
no,
We worked
it's not.
so
It's
hard
not.
to get
Yeah,
to this point, and then
yeah. And it's just that huge hole in your life, isn't it? Yeah, I'm so sorry. And
thank you.
and yeah, and you mentioned your daughter. She sounds like an amazing young woman and a great support.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she lives in Queensland, and
Okay.
she's got a beautiful family, and she's doing really well. She's in psychology, so
Oh, is she?
yeah, yeah, she is, and she's doing fantastically. And
That's
I'm
good.
so proud of her. And she spent time
Beautiful.
here, but she's got her practice. She's got, the kids. She's a busy
Yeah.
woman. Yeah. So
Yeah.
she tries to get here as often as she can. And yeah,
It's really
it's
lovely you got that relationship and that strong bond with her.
yeah.
But and it's lovely too that you appreciate that she has her life.
Oh
Yeah.
yes, it's her
Yeah.
turn. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Good on you. And I heard you say, I think you said something like that you would hate for her to find out what was happening. Is that what you said?
Yeah. Yeah, I would.
Okay.
I think she would hold me in high regard. I know, and proud of me. And yeah, I, I like her thinking of me like that too.
Of course. Of course. But
Uh,
I'm getting a sense, John, that she's a pretty special young woman and doing psychology. She more than anyone would understand.
yeah.
But you're
Yeah.
just not you're not at that point yet, are you?
Look, walking in this door was a really good
Well, let's give you
step.
10 points for that. And you're here, and yeah, I think it's fantastic that you've taken, made the effort to be here. And I guess one of the beauties of this service, John, it's it's free, and you can come here the same time each week for as long as you need to. And
Yeah.
we'll talk about other services that you can tap into, to support you. But I think this is you know that this is a really safe place for you to chat to me. I've been working in this industry a long time and understand the gambling world and what's happening out there. And I know how difficult it is for people like yourself to get a grip on it. So I guess starting at that point, tell me what's happening with gambling.
I, I honestly cannot believe where I am right now. And I was just bored. I think,
Yeah.
like,
Yes. Yes.
once Anna left, and I tried some other things. I did the lollipop, at the.
Yes.
I
Yes. With all those little
tried,
children and the parents.
and the
Yeah.
parents, and yeah, it's just not me. I don't
Yeah.
feel
Yeah.
69.
No, and you don't look it. And from what the position that you held in
I
that
think that was a
banking
compliment.
corporation,
Thank you.
yes, absolutely. And honestly, I can see that I can see that you've got all this energy and passion, and you want to be doing something more.
I
So
think there's more to give. I really
yes,
do.
yes, I can see that. I can see that, and I'm picking that up from you, particularly when you were talking about your work, how exciting it was, and you were terribly good at it.
I
And I'm,
was good
yeah,
at my job. Even it's like I was 65 and I was
yes,
still nailing it, Louise.
yes, yes, yes,
And
and
everyone
and s-
expects me to stop, and it's
and
frustrating.
and do what? This is what it's frustrating, isn't it? As we grow older, people think, well, why don't you retire? Why don't you just be happy with that? But it sounds like, John, you've got something left in you that you still want to accomplish.
And that's where the gambling came in, I'll be
Yeah.
honest.
Yep.
Uh,
Absolutely.
And like going, we were members of the club, my wife and I, and we spent time at the club, and I was involved in lots of different organisations there and some of the sports. And then, we'd had an occasional go at the pokies and some of the things there,
Yeah.
and it was just fun, and it was silly, and it was a great way to finish the night, or if we'd had dinner and a couple of beers. And then I went there, and I remember the day I went there early, and we'd never been to the club early. I was just sitting around, and I didn't know what to do, and I just went down there, and I saw a couple of the guys there, and yeah, just chatted, had a laugh and sort of thing, and played a little bit on the pokies. And then because it just felt good to be, I don't know, connecting and doing
Yes.
something.
Yes.
And so we'd do that, and then we'd have a little bet on the horses. And yeah, I wasn't too bad at the horses. And I don't think I'm too bad at picking, the horses. I like the challenge of it. But then we mix in the poker machines, and they're the real ones for me,
Yeah.
Louise.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm smart enough to realise that there's not great odds at the pokies, but it just get a feeling of being part of something again. I think that was more than the wins, even
Yes.
sometimes.
Yes.
Like the wins were great, and everyone's sort of patting you on the back when you have a big win, but it was just feeling part, connected. I felt it's like having staff and people around, and anyway, that's where it started. And
And
then
yeah,
yeah, I
it
had a good
sounds
pension.
yeah. Yeah. Well, it sounds like you've got a pretty good understanding about how it commenced. And it's interesting there, John. You mentioned the word connection 3 times. And guess what? Before you even said that connection, I wrote down connection and a sense of belonging. So that's coming through really strongly for me, and clearly for you as well. And also why I wrote connection was it's a connection that you shared with your wife. And I'm wondering, by going to the club, it's a way of remembering her.
Yeah, we had some good times there too, I guess.
Yeah, and people knew her there too, and they knew
Yeah,
you were married to her. And so they're not just seeing you as John, they see you and your wife, and it's connecting and creating that sense of belonging again. And another thing that we talk about is a purpose. And so at the end of that, the purpose is perhaps, you know, having a punt on the horses or playing the poker machine because it gives you something to do. And you mentioned boredom. It fills in that time, doesn't it? And it's
yeah,
so understand. It's such a recipe when you think about what you went through and what you're going through. It's a perfect recipe to develop a gambling issue. You've got all the ingredients in there, John. All of it.
Jana
And
she was always at home. She gave up everything, her
yeah,
career,
yeah,
and I come home and she was always there. She always
yes.
put me first like that.
Wow. So I'm sensing you don't want to go home because she's not there.
It's not the same.
Yeah, no, it's awful. Going home to an empty house. It's really difficult. It's heartbreaking. And it's a reminder, isn't it? It's a slap in the face as soon as you open the door. It's really tough. And John, it's 18 months. You know, we're talking, it's not very long. And, you know, a little bit about, I worked as a grief and loss counsellor, and they say 5 years minimum. And sometimes, and I hate that the people say, oh, you know, time heals all wounds. I don't think it does. The pain might lessen a little bit. It doesn't, when you've had a love like that, it's always going to be there. That's always, and you know, how wonderful that you experienced that. And it sounds like together you create this beautiful daughter as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, John, I'm just curious about whether you've tried to stop before. Have you tried stopping gambling? So, I guess before, is it poker machines or the horses? What do you think is the major issue for you?
It's the poker machine.
Pokies. Yep.
They
Yep.
just
Yeah.
they just whittle the time.
Yep.
You know, it's
Yep. They're numbing, aren't they? You can just sit there and just be in this other world and not have to think about the pain and the sadness and the loss. Yeah, totally get it. Totally get it. So so how often would you say that you're going to the club? Yeah, only the one club that you go
just the
to?
one.
Okay. Yep. So I'm wondering, what have you tried to stop, and what worked and what hasn't worked?
So I realised I'm a smart person. I
Yes.
know coming here doesn't
Yes.
make me seem that smart, but
I think you're
like
smart.
I knew, like my retirement, my super, we'd saved up, and I knew it was going. And so I did try to stop about 6 months ago, and I got about 2.5 weeks. But I just got bored. I'll be honest, I got lonely. I was so busy working. The only people I really know are at the club. Like,
Yes.
all I did was work and then come home to my wife.
Yes.
You know, I was tired, and once Anna got old, all the kids' sports and stuff, it used to be so busy, and then I just worked, and yeah, so 2.5 weeks, and I just got bored. It's
Okay.
stupid.
I
It was
know you.
boredom
Yeah.
more than anything.
So we know it's boredom. So we know that one of the triggers is boredom. So I'm wondering, John, and you come across as super intelligent and capable and dynamic, and I'm also sensing that you're angry with yourself for playing them because you know that you're smart enough not to play them, yet you're playing them. Crazy, hey? So I'm wondering, and I'm hearing that you say, it was great when the kids played sport, and that was something to do. And then when that stopped, you worked and worked and worked. So was there anything you did before, other than kids sport and working, that you did that created some joy in your life? Anything else that you used to do?
I'm trying to think. It was, I used to play sport, and I used
Okay.
to coach the kids' side. Maybe the coaching. I enjoy the sporting side of things.
Yeah. And you look fit. You still look fit. So I'm wondering, what are you doing at the moment to maintain fitness?
Not as much as I used to.
Okay.
I
Okay.
used to do a little bit of running,
Okay.
and cycling.
Okay.
Yeah, the running's a bit hard now, I'll be
Yeah,
honest.
absolutely.
Yeah,
I can relate to that.
but
But cycling's doable.
yeah, it is. It is. And there is that local club. I saw a group of older people riding the other day as well.
Oh, wow.
I worry I
Wait,
won't be
yeah,
good enough to join them.
yeah, yeah. I understand that for sure. It's particularly when you perhaps were quite good at it and then starting up again. It's all that fear about not fitting in, and yeah. I'm wondering, is that something that perhaps you might consider doing at some stage?
Yeah, I guess I could. Yeah,
So
it'd
how can we make
be nice.
that happen? Yeah. So I'm wondering, how can we make that happen?
I don't know. Maybe I
What
can
would you
have a
need to
look.
do?
Well, I could go. They gather up around the velodrome there. I noticed on a
Okay.
Monday and a Wednesday around 8 o'clock. So I guess I
Okay.
could just go over and say hi.
Yeah. Do you think
Yeah,
that's something that might happen in the next few weeks?
yeah, I could give that a go.
Okay. We'll just see how
Yeah,
we go.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Uh,
It won't
yeah.
hurt to ask, I guess.
I'm wondering there, John, whether this is what we call a scaling question, and naught being, I'm not going to do it. It's just a bit uncomfortable. I don't think, yeah, I want to do it. But 10 being, I'm a little bit motivated to try this. Where do you think you might be? 10 is, I'm definitely going to do it. So somewhere between naught and 10, where do you think you might be on that scale to go over and talk to those blokes and perhaps, chat about cycling again?
Look, I'm at a point where I know I haven't got the money anymore to keep going to the club. It's
Okay.
terrible.
Okay.
There's a reality coming. Maybe a 7 or an 8,
Wow.
Louise.
7 or
Yeah.
8, that's pretty good, John. I wasn't expecting that. So that's remarkable.
It's seems stupid again. I'm feeling incredibly stupid today, Louise, but
Yeah.
it'd be something I'd enjoy, and I don't know why I
Ah.
never thought of it.
Ah.
I am competitive, and yeah,
Okay. Okay.
I'd
Oh,
like.
this is sounding better and better. It sounds you're getting up to the 10s.
You're
Yeah.
good. You're good,
Oh,
Louise.
no, it's honestly, John, you're doing all the work, and it really is. And I hear you say you feel stupid, and I also hear that a lot with people that walk through the door, particularly when you are a clever, smart person, because you know what you're doing is doing damage. You know it's hurting. You know it's not working. And I think, and it sounds, you are at a point in your life that you've had enough. You really have had enough, and I'm wondering, when you talk about the gambling, then same question, not being, um, well, I guess, how committed and motivated do you think you are not to gamble on that scale? Where do you think you might sit? It's
I
tough, hey?
don't know.
It's tough.
Yeah,
It's tough.
it's a part of me.
Yeah.
It's something. I'm motivated for the right reasons. I just don't trust myself.
And that's the gist of it there, John. You being here today indicates to me that you're up there. You're up there, towards the 10. It's the commitment. So then we look at the commitment level, and it's going to be hard, and it will be hard. Any addiction is tough, and it takes a lot of work and persistent work and coming to counselling, maybe going to talk to people in GA, Gambling Anonymous. Maybe it's about tapping into seeing your doctor and getting a mental health care plan to see a specialised psychologist. There's all these things that perhaps we need to do to support you in making change. And one of the toughest things may be not just not gambling anymore, but having a chat with your daughter. So it's not going to be an easy road. It's not an easy road, John. And But
I've never had an addiction before, Louise, besides
Yeah.
sex and chocolate ice cream.
of
but-
course.
Of course, the basics. But I just accepting that I've got an addiction
Tough
is.
to hear it, isn't it?
I've never smoked. I'm not a big drinker. I've never taken a drug in my life. So,
Yeah.
you know,
This is so new. This is so new for you.
I'm incredibly proud as well.
Yeah. 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 But John, I'm so pleased you said something that's crucial in the counselling world. You said it's a part of me. Did you hear yourself say that? You
Yeah,
said
I
it's a
did.
part of me, which is really interesting because one of the things I like to look at is, yes, gambling is a part of you, but let's take that part of you and put it over there because you're made up of other parts. Tell me some other good stuff. Like I can tell you some good stuff about you, and I've only just met you. I know
Oh,
that you're a good
please.
husband. Oh, you're an amazing husband. You're a fantastic father. You're an incredible banker. Like you were smart. You rose to the top. You were successful. Tell me some other parts of you that you're proud of because you said you're proud. What else?
No, I'm proud of being successful.
Yeah.
Proud of the house. Maybe
Yeah.
proud of the perception that I created. Maybe
Ah. Tell me more about that.
I'm not proud of where I am, Louise. That's
Gotcha.
I've
Okay. But you have
I've
been.
had this, yes,
Yes.
success.
All righty. So at one stage, not so long ago, you were a proud, strong individual who was quite successful, this amazing relationship, planning for the future, uh, you know, a daughter, grandchildren, all that was working. The wheels fell off, and now you're saying you're not proud. What do we need to do? But you are talking about perhaps cycling again, so that's a tick. What else do we need to do, John, to get John back? What do you think needs to happen?
Need to respect myself again, to be proud of myself again. I'm not proud of myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's-
So let's focus on the good bits, hey? Let's focus on all those good bits of John. And let's put the gambling, it's only a small part of you, John. It doesn't define you. So let's keep thinking, yes, I gamble, but I don't want it to control my life. I want to put it out there. I want to look at it. I want to do something about that so I can be whole again. Does that
yeah.
make sense?
Yeah, it makes absolute sense. That's exactly. Yeah,
Okay.
it's like yeah, you've summed it up. I feel like the shame of this gambling just has taken over my persona of who I
Yeah.
was.
Yeah. 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 But it's not you, John. It doesn't define you. I'm seeing so many other parts of you that are remarkable. So we've got to come back to John and let's take gambling and rip it out and put it over there and look at it and look at what are we going to do about that? What's the first thing that
Yeah.
you think of that you? I mean, you've heard me mention Gambling Anonymous. You've heard me. The other thing, there's a self-exclusion policy. I don't know if you've heard of that before. They don't advertise it very strongly, which is a shame. But you can actually go through the process of, I mean, we can do it here in our session, where you can exclude yourself from the gaming area at the club. Something to consider. You can still go to the club, but you can't go into the gaming area. So that but that's a big move. So I'm just telling you what it is, and we can actually exclude you from 35 venues in your area in one time. So that's something to consider. But I'm just wondering what else between now and next week that you think that you might like to try in regards to not gambling.
The this persona over me has been big. And I know the loss of my wife has affected me.
Absolutely.
My daughter's been pushing me to see Dr. McRae, my GP.
Okay.
He thinks
Okay.
that I've most probably got a little bit of suffering from depression as well. Louise, it's another thing don't talk about much. And
Yeah. Yeah.
she's been trying to get me to
Okay.
go see him for months now.
And I'm sensing, because John is strong and capable and and
Doesn't
there's
need.
perhaps a little bit of shame or defeatism or in doing that.
Yeah.
Okay. So what would it take for you to make that appointment?
What would it take? It'd be nice just to feel good again with
Sure.
everything. Maybe I could go see him, just have a chat with him. It's been good talking to you.
Okay.
I don't feel as embarrassed, I must admit. I thank you for not making me feel guilty about this. I was worried about that. I was worried about feeling really guilty and shame about it.
Yeah.
And so I'm really, really thank you,
You're
because
welcome, John.
you've been so understanding. And maybe, like, I've been seeing Dr. McRae for years. And
And you
yeah.
smile when you say his name. I
He's
noticed that.
He's a good
bloke.
guy. Yeah,
He
you
sounds
can
like a
have a
good
chat
bloke.
to him. He's a
That's
good
nice.
guy.
That's nice,
Yeah.
John.
He's someone you
and-
can
Yeah.
talk to, and he knows everything that's happened. So
Okay. Okay. How comfortable would you feel in chatting to him about gambling? A big one?
That's a big one. Yeah.
Yeah. See how you feel.
Yeah. Yeah.
See how you feel. And maybe it's about making an appointment to see him, and if you don't feel comfortable, then don't. But it sounds like I was wondering that too. I mean, we have what we call screening tools here about determining your level of gambling, and also looking at there's a depression and stress scale and anxiety. We can measure that. But I don't want to do that with you, because your daughter's picked up on that. So, and she's a smart cookie, and I'm just wondering then, I think it's up to you now. They're making that appointment with your doctor and having a chat to him, because I'm just curious, John, are you sleeping?
You noticed, did you?
I look like that all the time too. Yeah,
But
so you're not sleeping.
No, not sleeping.
Okay. And that's really common, John, when people come into the counselling space. I check in if they're exercising, if they're spending any time outdoors. Do you go outside at all in the sunshine?
I was a big exerciser, and
Yeah,
I've dropped a lot of this in the last
yeah.
couple
Yep.
of years. Well, yeah.
And it's understandable. I totally get it. It's so understandable. When as I said, everything that's happened is a recipe for gambling. You could write a script and you're ticking all the boxes. But you've come here today, and you're wanting change, and you want it to look different, and you want it to
I
be
too
different.
want.
And we know it's going to be tough. And
I just want that.
magic wand.
Give me the magic wand.
Hey, I'm curious, if this was happening to one of your best mates, if he was you, what would you tell him? What would your advice be?
I'd be like you. I'd be motivating. I'd be trying to get him to realize there's no shame in this, and to go talk to the doctor, go get support.
Yeah.
I would.
Yeah. So when you hear yourself say that, John.
Because it's me. I've never needed support. I
Yeah.
did it myself. Actually, I did need support.
You're 69. This is new. This is all new, but I'm really glad you've got a great GP. That's such a win. And perhaps, he might even suggest what they call a mental health care plan. And that's an opportunity for you to be referred to a specialist psychologist who might be a grief and loss specialist. It might be, talking to someone about the grieving process, but also what you're feeling, what's happening for you. And, it's a huge loss, John. And I think what we can do here then, by you coming here each week, we talk about the gambling and what's working, what's not working. But if you do get to see a specialist psychologist in grief and loss, they can help you manage that side of it. So together, we've got, and perhaps you want to do the self-exclusion. Perhaps you want to see or go to GA. You're getting a lot of people around you supporting you, so you're not alone. And I'm wondering too, John, because you mentioned, I think GA works really well with blokes. I know I'm not supposed to say that being gender, but it does. It really does, because for a lot of men, they have identified their identity has been work. And now that you're not working and gambling is interfering with that, it's seeping in and taking over part of that identity. I think GA is a really good opportunity for you to talk to other blokes about that. And that's stuff I don't understand. I have a lived experience with partners and family members, but not a personal experience. But I think sometimes you get a lot of value from talking to other people going through the same issue. How does that sound? It's up to you. There's no pressure at all. But I think it's something to keep in the back of your mind. Yeah.
Okay.
And I've got a client who goes to 3 meetings a day.
Yeah. Wow.
Yes. And has been for a very, very years.
Did they
Yes.
mind if you did that?
No, not at all. But that works for them, and they see me once a month. But that's everyone's different, and people who gamble are all different, even though it's a similar problem. So and the idea is, with us in these sessions, is working out what works best for you. And I don't give advice. It's whatever you want to try, I'll support. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I just want to go back to when you mentioned that 6 months ago you stopped gambling for 2.5 weeks.
Thought you might come back to that.
I'm going to make it difficult for you. What worked? What did you do? How did you come to that decision?
Numbers.
Yeah, money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At that point, I'd realised how much I'd spent.
Yeah.
In 12 months.
Wow.
Yeah. It's weird. You sort of switch off, or I don't know how I've done this. It just grew and grew, and I looked at it and went, oh my God, I'm not going to have any money.
Yeah.
And so I just tried to stop cold turkey and just lock myself essentially in the house.
Oh, gee.
Yeah.
Wow. So didn't leave the house at all. That's the only thing that worked.
Yep.
That's pretty drastic, John, isn't it?
No, I didn't know how to do it.
Yeah.
I still don't know how to do it.
Okay.
I just needed to get it, to feel like I was getting some level of excitement, some sort of
The connection.
Connection. Yeah, connection.
The connection. And I guess in that time we call it, and I'll give you a pamphlet on this. It's about chasing losses. We talk about people, because you lose, you think, oh, but I can win. My luck's going to change. So we get quite delusional, and I'm sure you understand this, being intelligent. We have these delusional thoughts that, oh, my luck has to change. It has to change. I'm there in the venue. I'm seeing people winning. It's my turn, and you don't. and then we get caught in this cycle. So I'm also wondering then, John, do you want to reduce gambling or stop altogether? What are you thinking?
It's the weirdest thing, Louise. I'm quite bored with it.
That's interesting.
it's-
Did you hear
it's-
yourself then, John? What did you say? Say that again.
I'm bored.
Hang on. You do it because you're bored, but you're bored doing it. Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
it's lost. It's
Is it
lost
an
its
oxymoron?
appeal. Yes.
Okay.
Like it. I don't think I'm the run of the mill. I feel like I'm different.
I think
I
you
suppose
are.
everyone's different.
No,
No,
I think you. Yes.
I
Yeah.
like being exceptional.
Of course you are. And you are. Hey, then I want to try something then with you. Is so let's look at gambling. Let's look at the poker machines. And we call this, it's a very fancy name called the decisional balance sheet. And so what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you this piece of paper, and I'm going to lead you through, it's a bit of an exercise. And at the end of it, I'll photocopy it and give it to you, and you take it home, do whatever you like with it. But what I like to look at is what are the benefits? What does gambling give you? Now, we know it fills in time. And this is interesting because you just said boredom, fills boredom. But and then we look at the opposite. What are the disadvantages? Say, well, I'm bored with it. So let's look at what is gambling giving you?
The excitement. There is
Yeah.
the thrill of the win.
Yep.
Is yeah. I love being a part of something again.
Yes. That connection, sense of belonging.
Yeah.
Bit of purpose, something
I
to
like
do.
people knowing my name and saying hi.
Yes.
And
Yes. Yes. It's a huge part of it, isn't it? That
yeah.
sense of belonging.
The club,
Okay.
the patron staff are great. They're so
Yes.
friendly. They look after me
Yes.
and welcoming.
Yeah.
It's nice. I enjoy
Yeah.
it.
And it's quite surreal, isn't it? With all it's all lovely, lovely people. No one's there, to be miserable, And then you go into the poker machine room, and all the lights and the whistles and the sounds, and it gets the heart racing.
Yeah, the adrenaline kick again. Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
I've never thought about it like that, but there is an adrenaline kick.
And you know what's interesting, John, and you'd appreciate this. Sometimes it's not so much the winning; it's the anticipation. That can be driving you more than the win. It's fascinating, and it actually releases dopamine in your brain, which makes you feel really good. So that just anticipating that win, and when you put the money in and pressing the buttons, that races your heart, and then the win is like, just missed out. I'll go again. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
it's
that feeling.
Yep. And we all want that, don't we? It's normal. It's very normal. So I'm wondering so that's what it gives you. What's it taking away? What's the not so good stuff?
Obviously the money, but it's also self-worth.
Yeah, you mentioned that before. And
I'm ashamed.
Yeah. And John, with your permission, that's something I actually like working with the client on. I think that's a big part of this, the self-worth. It comes up, it comes up with every client. Every client will mention esteem, respect, self-worth. So I think that's something that we will look at, not this week, but maybe down the track. Does that sound okay?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. Okay. What else does it take away? What else is it robbing you of?
Well, it robs me of time because it's time consuming.
So what?
But I think I like that.
Again, a contradiction, isn't it? You're not easy. So
I never said I was.
it's filling in the time, which is taking away from you, but it's also a good thing. See how we have this, it's the good and the bad about time. So let's pretend then, if you weren't gambling, what would be some good stuff about having that time back?
Well, I could do. Suppose I could do other things. I have been thinking about studying again,
Wow.
which was,
Wow.
yeah.
Like
It
what?
seems
What were you thinking?
pointless. Ah,
Let's go back. Tell me what were you thinking? And then we'll talk about the pointless. What were you thinking?
I don't know. Something completely different. Something not so financial. Something,
Okay.
something I do enjoy. Like my daughter talks about, her job, and and I love the idea of leadership and taking that further. And I'd even like to write a book on it, on leadership and negotiations, and how to, like the thing I see is, people rush to make decisions in negotiating, and things like holding on, and not setting timelines on yourself. I see that when people buy houses and make decisions, and they're like, oh, I'll make a decision at this point. I really think I could do that. So maybe studying about how to write a book, maybe.
That sounds fantastic. Look, I'm getting excited hearing you talk about it. And I was watching you. You were getting a little bit excited then too. And what comes to mind then, John, is your background again, your education, your training, your working life. And you talked about making decisions and people. And I'm wondering whether we can draw on that and apply it to what's happening for you now. Maybe it's about you thinking about, how am I going to do this? And actually writing out a timeline or writing down the processes that you need to put in to make this change. Because it sounds like you've got a pretty good idea what you need to do.
Yeah, I guess I do.
Yeah. And I'm just going to let you know, we've got the University of the Third Age, if you're over the age of 65. They're fantastic. And they have a lot of free courses. Yeah, and they actually meet just down the road at the local Wesley United Church. And they get there twice a week. And some people are studying philosophy. They're studying all sorts of things. But I'm sure leadership and management would be one of them, or writing a book. The community college runs courses on how to write a book. I think that's exciting. So time actually gives you an opportunity to do other things that you love and enjoy. Okay. Let's pretend though. So that's if we stop gambling. Let's pretend you don't. You continue gambling. What's it going to cost you?
No. I'm running low on funds.
Yeah.
It'll cost me my house, I guess.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. That's where I'm at a point now. I'll have to sell things.
Okay. And thanks, John, for being honest about that. And I guess what that indicates to me, that perhaps maybe we could have a chat to our financial counsellors. Have you ever heard of financial counselling?
Yeah, I have.
Okay. I mean, that's an option too. That's an option. And
I shouldn't need that, Louise.
No, because you're smart enough.
Banking all my life.
Hey,
that's
three of these guys are
ridiculous.
You know what? 3 of these guys are ex-bankers.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. You might turn around and become a financial counsellor. And I'm telling you, they're all over 65. Yeah, one of them's 72.
Really?
Yep. Came into the financial counselling world much later. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. So, keep that in the back of your mind about as an option. You might even want to just have a chat to them about what the role is. Yeah,
Well, I could
So-
speak from both sides, can't I?
exactly. And who better? So then, if we do continue to gamble, you could potentially lose everything. And I'm wondering, what about your relationship with your daughter? Yeah,
Right.
that's huge, isn't it? I can see it. You saying it. Okay. So, is there anything good about continuing to gamble?
There isn't. Louise, I know that.
Yeah, not other than the time and that sense of connection. But we've already identified that time. There's also good stuff attached to that. And we're going to look at building other connections. So, tapping into the potential of, riding a bike again. Maybe, writing a book, doing a course, studying. So we've got things to help you build connections and fill that time and address the boredom, which is what kept coming through really strongly, John. How does all that sound?
Yeah, it sounds good. It sounds like there's an opening. There's something there. I haven't felt
Yeah.
that for a while.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I'm picking that up too. Like there's a rainbow happening over there.
Well, there's an opportunity. There's
Okay.
options.
So
I like
let's,
the options.
yeah. And John, I'm just, it sounds weird, this question, but if you were to wake up tomorrow morning and you're no longer gambling, you don't even feel like gambling, you're not doing anything about gambling, it's not even a thought, what would you notice?
I'd feel free.
Ah, tell me about that. Free, that's it. Free.
I wouldn't be stressing
Okay.
about it. I wouldn't be feeling heavy all the time.
So there's a lightness.
I can,
Okay.
yeah, there's a real lightness.
Okay. What do you think your daughter might notice?
I might be more cheerful and humorous again.
Well, I can hear that you've got a good sense of humour. I've experienced that today. Okay. So you'd be more, yeah, like the old dad.
I think so.
Okay. So what would other people, if you went to maybe you go to the club and you're not gambling, what would people around you notice?
Around the club,
Hmm.
that I'm not at a poker machine.
That too. You get that.
Maybe the wit would come back, and maybe, yeah, I feel sharper again.
Oh, I like that. Sharper. I'm going to remember that word, John. And to me, that is who you were. And we can get that back. We can get sharp John back.
I'd like it.
Yeah. Well, John, we've covered so much ground today. It has been amazing. Like
Thank you.
and thank you for sharing your story and being open and honest and having the courage to do that.
You
So-
made it easy. Thank
Oh.
you. I appreciate it.
Oh, honest, I love doing this. I love it. And I hope that you're comfortable in coming back again next week to continue, because there's a few things I'd really like to, if you're comfortable and when you're comfortable. And that's one of the things about this sort of counselling is, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, I want to look at the self-worth and, what else is happening. But if you get, I don't want to do that today. I go, fine. And you might even come in and you might have, Lou, I want to talk about self-exclusion. How do we do that? Let's do that. I go, okay. So you drive this session, John. I'm here to support you whichever way you want to go. If you want to stop gambling completely, you're thinking about reducing gambling, whatever it is. And I guess between now and next week, I think I'd like what I'm saying. I feel from what you've talked about that you could write a book that you could, teach other people about making decisions or, not making rash decisions. I'm wondering if between now and next week, you'd feel comfortable in writing down some goals. And I know that you would know that being in the corporate world, and look at and with those goals being really specific about what they are. It doesn't have to be about gambling, it could be about anything. And then look at, how am I going to do that? And who do I need support from to do that? Is it, the club? Is it my daughter? Is it, Louise? Is it my doctor? And just perhaps think of that. Does that sound all right?
Yeah, it sounds a good idea, actually. Yeah.
If you don't do
Okay.
it, no biggie. No, but you might even just have some thoughts we can talk about next week. The other thing, I'm just wondering, if you do gamble this week, and that often happens. I've had clients who have been to this session and gone straight to the club because it was so stressful.
Well,
Yeah, so I hope that doesn't happen. But there's one of the things we talk about we call them stages of change. When you sound like you're at the stage where you've been preparing, you're in action mode, you're going to do this, and the hard part is maintaining it, like keeping it going, because you went 2.5 weeks. This time we wanted to see if we can extend that, but it might only be a day. You might have you might be a memory, it might be something that might happen, and you find yourself in front of a poker machine. If that happens, I hope you feel comfortable coming back and talking to me about that, because that's where we learn. We look at
Thanks,
what
Loz.
we missed. What can we do? What else do we need to put in place? Does that sound okay? Because it can happen.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, because you're talking about big changes here and making significant changes to your life. But I know that it can look different and better. Okay,
Appreciate it. I really do.
you're welcome.
I'm
Well,
tired.
thanks, John. Yeah, it's
Quite
exhausting.
exhausting. Yeah.
I'm wondering, John, what's something that you can do for you when you finish here, when you leave here? Is there anything that you can do that's positive, that's helpful? Can you call someone?
Chocolate ice cream.
That sounds pretty good. All right. Get a big tub.
Thank you. I will.
Thanks, John. I'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Well
Bye.
done. Oh,
Holy
so
Oh, nearly swore.
that's all right. You can swear.
I've never used a poker machine in my life. I don't know what it's like. I
Well,
really don't.
it was a damn good role play. You were very convincing. It was excellent.
Yeah.
So I need to know what your real name is.
John,
No,
I'm
what's
a
your real name?
banker.
You're back-
Damn.
You're back to being
I'm
the super duper sports coach.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And safe house. Yeah.
Mm.
So do you need a moment to go
No,
get
I'm
a
fine.
coffee? You're right.
No,
Okay.
all good. It's all good.
All right.
You're amazing.
Oh,
Oh,
I've had a lot of years practice. Thanks. Thanks.
oh, goodness gracious. Yeah,
So-
I'm sorry. I felt like things I couldn't do particularly well were like, I haven't had an addiction. My father was an alcoholic, so I won't drink coffee. I was set from an early age. So that was really tough. But,
Yes.
I couldn't describe that. And I felt like, oh, I'm not doing a good job of that.
No, you
because
did. You did a fabulous job.
Yeah, but not
Yeah.
knowing how they feel like that was tough.
But
So,
you know what, Dan, what you did do was you actually emphasized all those things that leads to that behavior. And you did, even in the role play, you're talking about the connection, the loss of connection, and creating that sense of belonging and lack of purpose. So that came through really strongly. So thank you. And I loved it that you really put a lot of time and effort into losing your wife, because I think hopefully what people glean from that, and you guys won't be able to do that in the role play, but that's what a session looks like. I spend a lot of time in the story. Let the client tell their story at their own pace, without judgment, and do what they need to say without jumping in and stopping it or interrupting. And because we've got to get the story, we've got to understand where they're coming from. If you don't do that, we've got no idea what's happening for them. And I didn't even look at the time.
yeah,
But
I didn't
that
either.
felt like about 20 minutes. I don't know if anyone else noticed that. If anyone else noticed how long we
What
spent.
time did we start?
I've got no idea. I winged it. But I know I spent a considerable time getting your story and not interrupting. Yeah. But I guess in saying that about role playing, John, in that instance, when we do our role plays, you won't be going to that much depth. It'll be more of a snapshot, tip of the iceberg stuff. But I wanted to demonstrate to you what a typical gambling counselling session looks like, and how I did mention the screening tools, but I didn't use them because I thought they were inappropriate. He'd already told me. I already got that. And yes, I've got someone with their hand up. Who's got, I can't. Oh, here we go. Milo, yes. What would you like to ask? Please ask questions. It's really important. It's all part of it.
Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, cool. So what I wanted to ask you is, when we have the real session and the time, because we can never plan really how long it's going to take, how we are dealing when it looks like there's not going to be enough time, or
So what will happen is the sessions will go for 20 minutes. You'll be in a fishbowl, which
Mhm.
we'll be practicing the week before we do our role plays. And I'll show you how that's done. So, and then
But
it's
I was
about
thinking,
controlling
yeah.
the process. It really is, you're in
Okay.
control. With the client, we're in control. And that's something we need to remember. So when we get to a sense of time when it's wrapping up, we have to do either a summary or talk about strategies, talk about between now and next week, I'd like you to consider this, but we control it. Always remember that.
Yeah.
We're the
And
boss.
when it's like, what we're doing
that,
if we
sir?
come to the what we're doing when we come to the a crucial moment for them, they want to say something important and we're thinking, oh, we have to wrap it up, or this is something.
Well, one of the people, if it's in the real world, we would do something.
Yeah, I'm
But
talking
in
about real.
taste,
Yeah, I'm talking
yeah.
about. Yeah.
Oh, in the real world, I'll park it. I'll go, hey, this sounds like something that's really important. I'm really sorry, but we have run out of time because I've got another client waiting for me. But I
Okay.
really would, with your permission, I'd really like to look at that next week if that's possible. And I
Mhm.
always say, you saw me do it with Dan. And if you don't feel like doing that next week, that's perfectly okay. But you always
Mhm.
acknowledge it, honor it, and note it, and say, can we do that next week? I'm sorry, we just don't have time today. Okay.
Okay, and I have another question. Thanks. I have another question, which is, I noticed that you were pointing out a lot of what is bad about gambling, and I would like just reminder of what is good about that.
Oh, that's the decisional balance sheet. So what we do there, I want to
Okay.
find out what they like about gambling. What does it give them? What's the good stuff?
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Or what's the good stuff? What's not so good? Why does gambling suck? And this is interesting with that decisional balance sheet. Depending on the clients I'm working with, if I'm working at Triple Care Farm, which is 15 to 24-year-olds, I go, hey, what's the great stuff about gambling? Tell me all the cool stuff. And then I might say, what parts of it suck? So I'll use language that
So
they
we
relate
start.
to.
Okay, excuse
And
me.
it's
So we
not hard.
start with good. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it depends. I always start. Yeah, I start with good and what's not so good.
Great.
Yeah,
Thank
but
you
if we
so much.
do change, that's okay. And if we do stop gambling, then tell me what's the great stuff about not gambling. You're not gambling anymore. What does that look like? And people say, I'll save money. I'll be able to go take my kids on a holiday. The banks won't be ringing me with a no caller ID every day. And what John said was, I feel lighter. I feel lighter. I'm not stressed. But we also know that gambling's been playing a role. So then, and then we looked at, okay, but gambling has been playing, it's been fulfilling a need. And John mentioned about time and connection. So then, as a counsellor, I'm thinking, right, then what do we need to put in place around time And John came up with a fantastic strategy about maybe writing a book, maybe studying. So that addresses time and also builds connections. So, and that's what happens in a session. The client knows, and they come up with some amazing ideas. And I can never predict what they're going to come up with, never. But I go along with whatever they come up with. I go, fantastic. Okay. So thanks, Marla. Paula,
Thank you so much.
you're welcome.
Hi, I've got a question for you, Louise. That was great, by the way.
Thank you.
So John is still grieving his wife.
Yep.
How do you approach, because when he comes back next week, if he hasn't gambled again, so he's going to start grieving gambling.
He's going to stop. Sorry, what was that?
He's going to grieve the gambling, like how it
Yes.
felt,
Yes.
that part
Yes.
of his life.
Yes.
How do you approach that? Do you send him to like a grief counselor, like as well, or?
We don't know, Paula, because I'm hoping that he's made the appointment with Dr. McRae. I'm hoping.
And getting
with
his
that,
mental health on top, so then he can move forward in a better headspace.
And that trauma, that gambling, that psychologist will link grieving the loss of gambling with his wife. And also there might be some grieving about his daughter moving away to Queensland. We don't know enough about that just yet. You know, there's so many options here with John, and we don't know where it's going to go. But yeah, and Paula, you just don't know. I've had clients walk back in Monday who, that's it. They've had one session and they've done exclusions. They're going to GA. They've seen the GP. They've got the mental health care plan. They've got an appointment with a financial counsellor. They've cut up their credit cards. They've rung the banks. And I sit there honestly and go, what? Like, wow, far out. Like I'm like, this is awesome. This is, oh my goodness. I said, you were clearly ready to embrace this. This is awesome, fantastic. So where do we go from here? And they'll say, I don't think I need to see you. I said, that's even better. So, you know, we don't know, or they have gambled every day. We don't know.
Because I think that's a hard thing. Like when they stop, is that what do they do in place?
What now?
What now?
What now? It
Finding
is,
those joys again from, that dopamine.
Absolutely, Paula. It's we don't know. We don't know. But you heard me congratulate, and that's done meaningfully, not patronising. It's real, because it's hard to admit you've got an issue or a problem. And seeing a stranger, like spilling your guts to a stranger, you don't know what she's going to be like or he's going to be like. You're walking into a new place and the shame attached to it.
Like John at the beginning was like he didn't want to be there, but he knew it had to be there. But at the end, he was really loving being there. If he wasn't in such a good place at the end of that session, would you maybe not do it in a week? Would you do it in 3 days, maybe?
Again, goes back to your service. Are you allowed to? So what I can do, Paula, if I'm concerned about John and particularly him, I didn't focus on the depression because I thought he was okay and he was going to go see his GP. If I was concerned about he may have been at risk, I would enter into a contract and say, John, I am a little bit concerned. You mentioned that, and your daughter mentioned that you could be experiencing some depression, and you clearly have experienced deep loss and sadness. I'm wondering if you'd be okay if I was to ring you tomorrow morning and maybe every morning until I see you next Monday. Okay. And he'd go, yeah, that'd be fine. So just a 2-minute chat just to see that you're okay. So you can do that. But often they can't come back till a week, but they can come for as long as they like. I might be running with the, what do they call it, Gambling Impact Society. They were running a gambling support online group Tuesday night from 6:30 to 8:30, but there's nothing like that running anymore. If that was running, I would talk about that as well. Okay. But yeah, thanks, Paula.
Thank you.
Cool. Bernadette.
Yeah, that was great, that role play. I'm just wondering, the when you say there's some people that will just stop, like after one session,
Yeah.
do you notice there's a certain personality type or something, that a pattern where the people that can just stop like that and other people where it takes longer?
Yes, good question. And I'm going through all the clients, and I almost have a sense when they walk through that door, who's going to be challenging, who's going to do my head in. Like, you get a real sense of them. And those who walk in, it's their body language. So it's a really good question, Bernard. And in terms of a personality type, like, I would suspect somebody like John, who is very successful, I'm going to tap into that. I'm going to use that. So that he has got a personality type where he's used to being successful and achieving, setting goals, and ticking off those strategies and doing it. I think he's going to be he's going to be a great client in terms of he's going to do the work. In terms of personality type, I mean, I've said this before, there's conjecture about, people say, oh, I've got an addictive personality. I don't know. You know, maybe you just have big holes in your life where you need to fill that with other things. I don't know. I don't know whether I've shared this story with this one lady that walked in, and I'll never forget her. She was perhaps one of my most challenging clients I've ever worked with, and she had a high profile corporate job, and one of the only females in this role. She was in her 50s, and as she walked through the door, she had perfect hair, didn't move. She had on beautiful jewelry, gorgeous suit, stockings, perfect shoes, the briefcase, an overcoat and an umbrella, and it was 24 degrees, sunny outside. And she walked into the room and she sat down and she said, not exactly, she said, I've heard good things about you, and my psychologist said I had to see you because you're going to fix me. That's what she said straight away. And I'm looking at her and I'm checking. So you tell me, a person dressed like that, tell me about her appearance. What are you getting a sense of? Someone like that.
Perfection.
Ah, nice, Molly. Perfection. What comes with perfection?
Maybe she needs to be in control.
Control. Yes. What else? Come on. Have some fun with it. What do you reckon?
Maybe to be liked, really. Attention.
Nice. Yes, and that was a big part of it. Wanting to be liked, putting on this facade.
Mm-hmm.
And my clinical psychologist used to tell me, he said, when anyone ever presents perfectly coiffed, he said, you've got big issues. You're in for a challenge. He said, because they're trying to control everything, and they're controlling the narrative in their life, and they've got issues everywhere with all their relationships. And it was so true. And she was challenging, but I remember at one time, and I got her on the ground because I just wanted to shake her up because she was so controlling and just fixed and wouldn't try anything. And I thought, okay, this is what I've got to do. So I got a big piece of butcher's paper, and let's call it Jan. Jan, we're going to get down on the ground. She goes, what? I said, come on, I want to try this with you. And I did the decisional balance sheet with her on the ground because I wanted her to move, to not being controlled, to relax. And it worked. It worked, and she loved it. And so the next day when she walked in, or the next week, she said, let's get down the ground, Louise. I want to do some more work. And we ended up doing mindfulness, which she'd never done before. We did lots of cool stuff, and she was bringing stuff to me that she wanted to try. So it was weeks of hard work, but it was ended up bringing her son in as well to help him understand what was happening. And it was a really sad story. There's always, I shouldn't say always, often a sad story attached to that. Any other questions? So what was that?
I wanted to ask you, how do you deal with them when they give you a task to fix them? Because they don't understand they are only people who can fix themselves.
What did I do with John?
What did you do with John? You basically you make him understand that.
What did I remember? What he said when he came in?
I don't remember.
I made a joke. I said, "So you want me to just wave that magic wand?"
Oh, okay, magic. Okay, I remember
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
And I hear that so many people come in here expect me to do that, and then I explain the counselling process, what it was about. I clarified expectations. I checked in to see if we had counselling before. So we want to break down all those stereotypes and myths
Okay.
about yes, and you make light of it. You make light, so you make light of it.
So yeah.
Kate, tapping into the strengths of that person. And I did that quite a lot with John, didn't I? Because one of the things that was presenting was he felt stupid and this is so unusual for me and I can't believe I'm here. So, and you saw me separate the gambling as a part of him out there.
Yeah.
So what I would do next week, or maybe the week after, I would definitely be looking at narrative therapy with John. I'd be looking at doing some really creative work, and particularly when he's talking about writing a book. So there's a creative side to him. I could use that.
You're already applying that, Louise, in there, like exceptions to the rule and
yes,
quite a few little narrative tricks through
Thanks, Katie. Yeah, and that's how narrative works beautifully, doesn't it? When don't you feel like gambling? You know, when have you noticed that you don't have that urge?
Exactly.
Yeah, thanks, Katie. Yeah. Anything else? I can't go back through all this chat pot. It's huge. Bernadette, have you still got your hand up?
Yeah, I was with the
Sure.
different therapies. I was just wondering, because obviously I could see the motivational interviewing parts that you were doing quite clearly. It's quite similar, isn't it, to solution focused therapy, or like what's the main difference between the two?
Yes.
Because when I was reading about it yesterday, I was just thinking it really reminded me of solution focused.
They're all, and Bernadette, you're correct. They're all a behavioural therapy, and it's in the words. Solution focused. Okay, solution focused is about let's get an answer. Let's drive it to the end. We're not stopping, and it's really fast paced with solution focus. So, and we want to get there, and we use the same things. So motivational interviewing and solution focused and DBT use the guru question, which I use with John, and the miracle question. They all encompass that. So they're very similar. Motivational interviewing, and this is what we're going to do next week. We're going to look at motivational interviewing and the difference. And what we talk about in motivational interviewing is the spirit of motivational interviewing. And I love that. It's the spirit, and it's all about compassion and evoking change and rolling with resistance, not fighting, looking for and exploring those discrepancies. And, that decisional balance sheet is beautiful, and it sits perfectly in motivational interviewing.
Oh, so was today more solution focused therapy you were doing, or was it motivational interviewing? You're just going to talk more about it next week.
So next week we'll be practicing motivational interviewing. I want to do probably the first hour like a shoot, and then we'll do some practice about motivational interviewing. It's not hard. It's really easy.
Yeah. So it's more solution focused is you're finding getting them to get to a point of an answer, but motivational interviewing is a bit more of an exploration as to why.
Yeah, evoking change.
Or
finding the hook
about it and what's not working.
And also the hook. So with motivation, I'm looking for the hook, and the hook with John is his daughter, and that he was once successful and strong, and he wants to be that person again. So they're hooks I'm looking for, which is part of narrative too, but more motivation. We want to evoke change. We want to have a conversation. Listen for the change conversation. What's he wanting? That's motivation interviewing. It's change talk. Look, seeing where he is on that scale. or that stages of change. And I mentioned that a few times.
Thanks, Louise.
Oh, that's okay. That's fine. It's and it is, and I remember when I started out, Bernadette, I used to get confused with them, and but I can't emphasize enough. The most important thing is strength-based, person-centered. The other things are they're not tricks, but they're techniques, tools, strategies, just like having this little toolbox next to you that you bring out now and again. But the person-centered, strength-based is the most important. Have compassion, lots of compassion for your client. And even in the role play, Dan mentioned that even in a role play, he felt like he wasn't judged and it was okay, and he felt a little bit better. Yeah. And if you notice, I didn't do, at the end, I didn't do much of a summary. I think we covered enough. And I also didn't ask him how it went today because he already told me. He already told me how he felt. Okay. Any other questions or anything that you found curious or anything at all?
Louise?
Yeah.
I really loved whenever you said John's name, which was quite a lot, that was actually really strength-based, like you were speaking to the whole man, like you were almost calling him back to his wholeness and confirming that, like it actually had a tangible, beautiful quality about it, like you were the wraparound. There was so much acceptance in your tone and everything that was beautiful. And I also really loved the empowering aspect of this, like the psychosocial education bit that you did, and how incredibly naturally and chat-like that actually was. Like,
yeah.
Really gorgeous the way you incorporated that in there.
Thanks,
and
Kate.
maybe tools of like, you've got all the ingredients here. Like the normalizing was really
Yes, thank you.
very cool. Yeah.
And thank you, Kate, for that feedback, because I'm so glad you mentioned normalizing, because he said he felt stupid. I want him to know that it's okay, that this is really a normal part of the process. And what he's feeling is normal. So thanks, Kate. And the other thing is I do that a lot with people's names, and I do that in my general life too, but in counselling it is important because it does draw them back. And can I tell you something else, Kate? And when Dan said Louise, it brings me back. It does. It just, oh yeah, Louise, that's me. So, and I think when you get, and remember, I've got a lot of years experience doing this, and it is about weaving in that information so it doesn't sound like I'm going, well, da 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 da. It's a conversation, and I love the gambling space because it does feel like to me it's a meaningful conversation with intention and evoking change. So it is a conversation, and I know that clients walk away feeling, wow, that was okay. It's not what I thought it'd be. And that's so nice. Whereas if you go see some counsellors, psychologists, you really feel like they are the psychologist. They've got the clipboard out, they're doing all those things. And I can tell you in that session, all I wrote down was connection. That was before, when John was talking about, as soon as he said the loss of his wife, I wrote down connection. And then he mentioned that 3 times. And I mentioned that. And the other thing I wrote down was 6 months, 2.5 weeks. They're all the case notes I took because that's all I needed to bring me back and keep me on track. Yeah.
You're referring as well the way, like you weren't
in
any direction, but you were just talking about options. But because you know the industry so well, you knew about the University of the Third Age. You knew that the guys doing financial counselling, like, yeah, one of them is actually like over 72. They had a background in banking and like that. These people. We're speaking about people and that warm referring. It's actually was just so valuable.
Thanks, Kate. Yeah, and I did. I will often do that. I've had one lady from Berrima Jail who was in banking, stole $6 million from the Commonwealth Bank. She is now one of our best financial counsellors. And that was part of her recovery. She's amazing.
Amazing.
You know, so it's doable. And it is, and this is why I talk to you guys about networking and referral. Know your stuff. Know your stuff. Look at the person's age. You know, what can they be doing? You know, and John wants to do more. Support him, encourage him, amplify his successes, and yeah, you can do this. I'm going to be on the sideline and support you. And you know, I can't wait to read that book. But you see, the other thing I did too, when he talked about that, I said, let's draw on that and let's transfer that across to maybe using those skills and strengths in developing a plan with the gambling. Yeah. Yeah, I did in a stage. I kept going back to that because I felt that was really important, and it wasn't done patronizingly. It was done genuinely. Like I'm hopeless with money and finances and anything in the banking world. My eyes just glaze over. So I'm always impressed with anyone that can work in there. So, but it was genuine. We've got a couple of minutes. Anything else?
Oh, yeah, I just want to comment too. Like, I really loved how I guess it seemed like narrative therapy, how you were talking about the different parts of
Yes, absolutely.
John,
Yes.
and like
yes.
putting the gambling part to one side.
Yes.
Because then it just felt like there was air to breathe.
Yes.
And then looking at other parts of his life. So that was just a really nice way of inviting, getting to know John outside of that.
Definitely, Bernadette. And I possibly say that I think I do with every client. I would say something like, it's a part of you, but it's not all of you. It doesn't define you. You've just told me about this other John, da 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 da. And now this is a John who's still that person. You're still there, but a part of you now is gambling. So let's kick that out. Let's remove that. Let's put it over there and tell me about John. And that's how you get to know them. Yeah, Andrea, it's so true, isn't it? And I hope that get sharp. Yeah, and that, thank you, because he was sharper, and that's something I didn't write that down, but after he left, I would write down sharp John, and I would bring that in. I'd weave that in each week. So what's sharp John looking like? What's John done to be sharper this week? What's going on? What's happening? What are you doing? Become this really person. Yeah. And you know what? And then I would use that too, Andrea, for what Bernadette's talking about with the narrative therapy. So what is sharp John? What is he wearing? What sort of clothes? You know, what have you had for breakfast that morning? Yeah. What are you doing for lunch? Yeah, what are you doing this afternoon? What does sharp John look like? So you start creating this vision. Okay. Yeah.
That's really good.
Okay. Okie dokie. So we've got a couple of minutes. So that was, I was hoping to play the client today. I was hoping to get my acting skills out and be Danielle. But anyway, thank you, Dan, so much for doing that today. It was brilliant. It was so good. And now you have a recording. The other thing too, Dan, with that recording, that will disappear in 12 months. So you won't be there in TAFE forever. So next week, motivational interviewing, practice, and we don't have much more time. And I think I put everything in our thing. So I've only got, next week we've got Joseph Lyon, who's the community coordinator for Gamble Aware for the South Coast. So he'll be here next week. I'll be away the following week, and you've got 2 sessions with Liz. And then I'll be back that Monday, the 4th, I think. And that's when the quiz is due. And we'll be practicing our fish bowls, so they won't feel so weird. And then the following week is the role plays. Can you believe it? It's going to fly. It will fly. So, yeah, we've got a non-teaching week in week 10, and that's for us teachers to catch up with a lot of people who need to do assessing to pick up the bits. And you'll be finished term 3 in no time, and then got one more term. Wow.
Hey, do I get an exemption from the fish bowl? You know, because surely I already get a little tick.
Yeah, nice try.
Oh, well, worth a go.
Oh. it'll be yeah, because everyone will have a not everyone. There'll be 3 people within your fishbowl, and someone will play Billy, someone will play Danielle, and someone will play John. So, and you don't have to do what Dan did. You know, he may have been a pilot. I've had pilots. I've had chefs. They've taken on all different roles. You know, but part of it is understanding why John doesn't want to go home, and that's part of it. Okay, so there's a loss there. We don't know, and you'll take it wherever you like to take it. So use your creativity. Okay, all right, guys. Well, let's have a break. Thank you. It's 11:30, and we'll. Oh, that was the other question, Liz.
Yeah.
Liz and I chatted about the possibility of coming back at 12. Was that what we said? Like only have half-hour break and finish earlier. Because we can do that. So I'm just wondering. I don't know whether can we do it today, because I don't know whether everyone does gambling and case management together.
I'm not sure they do, so we probably can't do it today.
Yeah, but I guess it's something that for all of you to have a chat about, whether you would like to just have half-hour break, you know, whether the hour's too long, and you can finish a little bit earlier. So I don't. How do we do this? Thumbs up, thumbs down, or something? I don't know. Maybe think about it, and after Liz's session today, we can put something in the chat box about yay to finishing, well, only a half-hour break. Is it for gambling? So the second part of the lecture is for case management today. Yeah, so case management at 12:30 with Liz. All right, guys, we'll see you. So you can do, yeah. Good person prefers soldering. Yeah, I'm a bit like that, Will. I like to get things done. I don't like having breaks at all. In fact, when I'm even at TAFE, I'll do a 9-hour day. I'd rather do that than have breaks and stops and starts. So I do counselling too. I just go full on. Yeah, but anyway, we'll have a chat afterwards. So go and have some lunch or put a load of washing on, which I'm about to do. Okay, thank you.